Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om
Om
Namo Bhagavate.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Namaskritya
Devim Saraswatim Vyasa
Devim
Saraswati
Saraswati
Ojayam Udirayet
Tato jayam
Jayamudiraye.
Shrinvatam Swakatah Krishna
Namatam Swakata Krishna.
Punyashravana Kirtana
punyasrana kirtana
Kirtana.
Vidyantasto hi abhadrani
Yantasto Hirabhadrani.
Vidhunote Sahrit Satam
Viduno
Saraswati
Ashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu
Ashtaprayeshvabhadre.
Bhagavata Sevaya
nityam
Nityam
bhagavata
Bhagavadevaya.
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
bhagavati
Tati Uttama Shloke.
Bhagavadayishtiki
Bhakti
Bhakti
Bhavaneshti.
Krishnaya Vasudevaya
krishnaya
Krishnaya Vasudevaya.
Devaki Nandanaya Cha
devaki
Devaki
nandanaya
Nandanaya cha.
Nandagopakumaraya
Nandagopakumaraya.
Govindaya Namo Namaha
govindaya namo
Govindaya Namo
namaha
Namaha.
Mukam Karoti Vachalam
mukham karoti vachalam
Achalam
Angum Langayate Girim
angum langayate
Tamaham Vande
kripa
Matarinam. So until last week we covered the prayers of Queen Kunti. So the prayers were concluded. So this is the section after that. Lord was very pleased with the prayers of Queen Kunti. Let's begin with these verses. Shuta uvacha
Sutta uvacha.
pritayetham kalapadai
Prithayetam kalapadai.
parinuta khilodaya
Parinuta khilo daya.
mandam jahasa vaikuntho
Mandam jahasa vaikuntho.
mohayan iva mayaya.
Mohayan iva mayaya.
Please read.
Can you read, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes, Mataji.
Suta Goswami said, the Lord, thus hearing the prayers of Kunti Devi, composed in choice words for his glorification, mildly smiled. That smile was as enchanting as his mystic power.
Lord accepted Queen Kunti's prayers. So he mildly smiled, like he always does. And it was very enchanting. Tambadham iti upamantriya
Tambadham ityupamantya
pravishya gajasahvayam
pravyagasahvayam
sritascha sapurvam yasham
Sriyaspurvam Asumyasya
premna rajna nivarita
Premna Ragna Nivandita.
Rita.
Yeah, please read. Priti Mataji.
Sri Prabhuji. Thus, accepting the prayers of Srimati Kuntī Devi, the Lord subsequently informed other ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapura. But upon preparing to leave, he was stopped by King Yudhishthira, who implored him lovingly.
So again, so previous to this instant, Lord was about to go to Dwaraka, boarding onto the chariot. Queen Kunti stopped through her prayers, and after hearing prayers, Lord is about and protecting the child in the womb of Uttara, Parīkṣit. Again, Lord is about to board. Now, again, this incident happened where this time Yudhishthira Maharaj stopped him. This is a second incident of stopping Lord from visiting his place. So he implored lovingly. Something is going on in his mind and he couldn't contain himself. Yudhishthira Maharaj stops Lord Kṛṣṇa for help and guidance. Please continue.
No one could make Lord Kṛṣṇa stay at Hastinapura when he decided to start for Dwaraka. But the simplest request of King Yudhishthira, that the Lord remained there for a few days more, was immediately effective. This signifies that the power of King Yudhishthira was loving affection, which the Lord could not deny. The Almighty God thus conquered only by loving service and nothing else.
By the simple request of King Yudhishthira, Lord remained there for a few more days. So it was because Lord is bound by the love of the devotees. Lord is supremely independent. Nobody can make him bound by their rules. He's beyond all rules and regulations. But by the affectionate love of the devotees, Lord is bound. So when the devotee Lord, King Yudhishthira stops the Lord, he stops because he is bound by the love of the devotee. Vyasadhyay Parīkṣit
Vyasatye Ishvarya
Hainyai.
Kṛṣṇenādbhuta karmana
Krishnenādbhuta karmana.
Prabodhito apiti hase
Bodhito apitihase.
Nabhudyata sucharpita
Nabodhyata sucharpita.
Vyasa Jair Ishware Hajnai. So by the will of the Lord, something special is happening here. Kṛṣṇe Nadbhuta Karmana. Kṛṣṇa is always the performer of great activities, superhuman activities. Now, so Yudhishthira Maharaj was feeling very distressed for all the casualties that happened because of the war. So many of his family members, so many kings all over the world died. Almost 64 crore people died in that war. The biggest casualty in the world history. And he was very, very sad. So even so many people tried to console Yudhishthira Maharaj. But because he's a devotee, he's a pure devotee, he's too soft-hearted and he's not able to contain himself. He could not reason why, why he committed all this. He could not. Is it because of my, desire for the power that I have done this? So he's in that mindset. Even Kṛṣṇa can try to console him. Even Kṛṣṇa's counseling also did not help it. So Acharyas explained why. There is whenever Kṛṣṇa performs an activity, it has a very deep meaning. There is much deeper insights we need to understand. So in this context, Lord, even though externally he is consoling, Lord is also present within the heart of everyone, including Yudhishthira Maharaj. So from inside, Lord was not allowing him to accept the words of Kṛṣṇa as Paramatma. So that's why it's called Kṛṣṇena Adbhuta Karmana. So we'll understand why it is so. Okay, read the translation.
King Yudhishthira, who was much aggrieved, could not be convinced despite instructions by great sages headed by Vyasa and the Lord Kṛṣṇa himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence.
So everybody knows that the Kauravas were aggressors. They tried to kill Pandavas. So many, they were not even giving 5 small villages. That's the reason for the whole war. Before the war happened, Lord Kṛṣṇa tried to just get like 5 villages to Pandavas. Even that they would not agree. And this war has finally happened, and all the Kauravas, including all their supported kings, were killed. Almost 64 crore people were died. So Yudhishthira Maharaj could not, accept this calamity that happened over the last 18 days before the, during the war. So he was very much distressed seeing the misery of the people, and he was being Dharmaraja. He's very sad, and he was consoled by Vyasadeva and Lord Kṛṣṇa himself. But Kṛṣṇa has a different reason why. From inside, he was not allowing Yudhishthira Maharaj to be convinced by his words. The reason is he wanted Kṛṣṇa wanted to use this as a reason to glorify another devotee. Who is that? Any guess?
Bhīṣma.
Yeah. So Bhīṣmadeva. So he wanted to take him to Bhīṣmadeva and make him teach how to rule the kingdom and many other principles, social principles. So that's the reason Lord wanted to use this opportunity to glorify his devotee Bhīṣmadeva. And also that becomes a good reason, because many people understand that Bhīṣma is a great devotee. However, they do not reason why he had to fight on the side of Kauravas. So it becomes a good platform for Bhīṣma to explain his reasoning and everything as to why he did what he did. And also it's a good occasion for bringing the depth of wisdom of Bhīṣmadeva. So that is the reason Lord Kṛṣṇa internally, is not letting Yudhishthira Maharaj be convinced of the counseling that he is doing external. That was explained that. Just discuss this. So does it mean that he failed to be a human actor? No, certainly not. The interpretation is that the Lord as Ishvara, as the super soul, in the heart of both King Yudhishthira and Vyasa, performed still more superhuman action because the Lord desired it. The super soul of King Yudhishthira, he did not allow the king to be convinced by the words of Vyasa and others, including himself, because he desired that the king hear the instruction from dying Bhīṣmadeva. Yeah. The Lord wanted that, and also this is a great opportunity for Bhīṣmadeva to directly witness his grandchildren, Pandavas, and also Kṛṣṇa himself want to give his darshan to Bhīṣmadeva at this last moment. So considering all these facts, Lord would inspire or let Yudhishthira Maharaj not feel satisfied after the instruction that he had given. And also Bhīṣmadeva, after seeing Pandavas, he would be very happy seeing his grandchildren finally going through all these difficulties. Finally, they have been, Dharma was established, and these children were rulers now. By seeing them, Bhīṣmadeva will also become very, very satisfied before his death. So this is another reason Acharyas say why Yudhishthira Maharaj would not feel convinced of the instructions given by Lord Kṛṣṇa himself. So this also teaches us the nature of a pure devotee. So here, here Yudhishthira Maharaj, while all this war happened according to the desire of Lord Kṛṣṇa also, because Lord wanted Dharma to be re-established. So, but Yudhishthira Maharaj thinks himself to be the only cause for all this war. This is the nature of a devotee. Devotee does not, a pure devotee especially, they take, if there is any damage or anything, they want to take the whole responsibility. If there is anything good that happens, they want to give credit to others. Right? So this is the nature of the devotee, this is the nature of the Lord. So Lord, what did he do? When the entire war happened, he wanted to give the entire credit to Arjuna primarily. Right? So that is the nature of Lord, that is the nature of devotee. When there is something wrong, they want to take the responsibility. Even in the case of Parīkṣit Maharaj, when he went to the jungle and he threw the snake on the Shaumik Rishi, Shaumik Rishi's son was upset, Shringi. He cursed Parīkṣit Maharaj to die in 7 days, just 7 days. And the Bhagavatam says, Parīkṣit Maharaj is equally capable to counter curse Shaumik Rishi or his son. But he wouldn't do that. He actually accepts responsibility for it. In fact, it is mentioned that Parīkṣit Maharaj would not want even to go to Shaumik Rishi to actually offer his apologies, because the message was sent by Shaumik Rishi in a spirit that says regretfully conveyed. The message, entire message was conveyed very regretfully by Shaumik Rishi sends one of his disciples to convey this message about the impending death of the king. Right? The message was sent with such gravity and such. Shaumik Rishi was not very happy with the. Is not at all happy with the action that his son performed. Parīkṣit Maharaj is so empathetic. First thing is, he did not counter curse, in spite of being powerful enough to counter curse. He accepted it as a mercy of the Lord. Second thing is, he would not go and offer apology, because he thought, if I go and offer apology, how much he would feel sad. He's already very sad. Very, the message was conveyed with such sadness that I cannot make him further sad by going and offering apologies. So that is the consideration of a devotee. When they want to take the full responsibility of the situation. So he accepted, although it is all an arrangement of the Lord. The whole thing was an arrangement for allowing Bhagavatam to flow. This whole thing was an arrangement by the Lord himself for Bhagavatam to come out in this context. So this is the way devotees accept, the pure devotees accept. And also we see this in the same, Arjuna was so confused in the battlefield, the greatest warrior ever existed. So Lord uses devotees, especially pure devotees, like instruments. This is because they are fully malleable. They are fully adoptable for the instructions of the Lord. So the Lord knows the nature of the devotee, and the Lord uses them as as necessary to convey the right message. So that's the lesson we can learn. Aharaja dharmasutas
Aharaja Dharmasuta
Chintayan suhridam vadam
Chintayan Sahridam Vadam
Prakritenatmana vipra
Prakritenatmana Vipra
Snehamoha vasham gata.
Snehamohavasam Gata
Prakritenatmana vipra. So this misery of dharmaras was not acceptable generally. Because why a person who is the sarma of dharma would get confused like this? Like, why is he in such misery? Please read.
King Yudhishthira, son of Dharma, overwhelmed by the death of his friends, was aggrieved just like a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak.
So, in general, common materialistic people who do not have spiritual understanding about the eternality of the soul, the temporality of the body, they get aggrieved and they get overwhelmed by the death of their relatives and friends. That is the nature of a materialistic man. But in this case, Yudhishthira was going through this because this is according to the plan of Kṛṣṇa. He has a higher purpose in this whole story that I mentioned in the beginning of this episode. So he was deluded by affection, and he began to speak like this in the next few verses. Continue, Rekha.
King Yudhishthira, though he was not expected to become aggrieved like a common man, became deluded by worldly affection by the will of the Lord, just as Arjuna was apparently deluded.
Like I mentioned, Lord uses the pure devotees as his instruments to teach the world lessons. That's the reason we see in this case. A read from here.
Okay. In such discharge of duty, one should not be disturbed by annihilation of the material body, which is only an external dress of the living soul. All this was perfectly known to Maharaja Yudhishthira, but by the will of the Lord, he became just like a common man, because there was another great idea behind this delusion. The king would be instructed by Bhīṣma as Arjuna was instructed by the Lord himself.
That is the reason. Lord actually from inside as Paramatma inspired him to be behaving this way. Aho me pashyatājñānam
Aho me pashyatājñānam
vidirudham duratmana
Hridhirudham duratmanah
Parākṣaisyaiva dehasya
Parākṣasyaiva dehasya
bhavyo me ksauhinirhata.
Bhavyo me ksauhinirhataha.
Please read.
King Yudhishthira said, "O my lord, I am the most sinful man. Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. This body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many, many phalanxes of men."
Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. Yudhishthira was, trying to express his sadness in this way by cursing himself. I'm the most sinful man. this body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many flanks of mine. So here the description of how many people were there. Flanks means 21,870 chariots and as many elephants, infantry and cavalry. Yeah, so this is called Akshohini. And many Akshohinis were killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Continue.
Yeah. Maharaj Yudhishthira, as the most pious king of the world, takes for himself the responsibility for killing such a huge number of living beings because the battle was fought to reinstate him on the throne. This body is, after all, meant for others. While there is a life in the body, it's meant for the service of others. And when it's dead, it's meant to be eaten by dogs and jackals or maggots. He is sorry because for such a temporary body, such a huge massacre was committed.
He's considering like that. He's thinking, why did I do all of this for my body? And that's what he was thinking. Baladvija Suhranmitra Bhratr Guru Duha Ameshan Nirayan Moksho Yapi Varshayuta Yutae. Please read.
I have killed many boys, brahmanas, well-wishers, friends, parents, preceptors, and brothers. Though I live millions of years, I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me for all these sins.
In fact, he's a Kshatriya. It is his duty to perform this war, right? To protect dharma, he has performed. However, because of his situation, he was feeling like that.
One quick question, Prabhuji. So when Kṛṣṇa showed his Virat Rupa to Arjuna, so does Yudhishthira aware of this at any time later point of time?
Whether he saw that?
Yudhishthira, yeah. I not saw that, but I think seeing only Sanjaya was seeing and Arjuna, right, at that moment, and demigods and all the higher planets.
So for seeing Virat Rupa, as explained in Bhagavad Gita, Lord actually gives special eyes to Arjuna at the time. So through those special eyes, he actually gets to see the form of the Lord, Virat Rupa. I don't think anybody else had saw in that assembly of war.
But at least is the Yudhishthira, was he aware of that the incident happened even after the war?
Yeah, definitely, because they're all brothers, so definitely it could have been discussed at home.
Yeah, okay.
So it definitely been known.
The reason I'm asking the question because he's again telling that, okay, he's again lamenting that because of him many living entities were killed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the reason was he was, again, like Arjuna, he's not, he should have just fought, right? There is no need for him to become so morose at the time during the war. Because Lord inspired from, as Paramatma, Lord is inspired devotees to act in certain ways. So Lord inspired in this particular situation, he's imploring from inside Yudhishthira Maharaj to actually forget all of that and behave in this way, speak in this way. It's not his natural way. He understands everything very well. But at this current circumstances, he was put in such a mindset by Lord so that he has a bigger plan on how to glorify his Bhīṣma. So because of that plan, because like I mentioned, right, devotees are fully malleable to the plans of the Lord. That is why Krishna uses them as the instruments in his past.
Yeah,
In this case also, Lord was using Yudhishthira Maharaj as an instrument to actually glorify Bhīṣmadeva, to give audience to Bhīṣmadeva. So for all those things to happen, was inspiring him to actually speak. It is not because of lack of knowledge or any other. They know everybody. Even they perfectly know. We saw in the prayers of Queen Kuntī, right?
yeah.
They know very well because they are pure devotees. They're fully situated in full Krishna consciousness and they're fully dependent on the Lord. Instead of all of that, like it's mentioned in the verse, like a materialistic man, he was overwhelmed with misery, right?
Yeah.
He's never, but circumstantially he was shown that way.
Prabhuji, did Bhīṣmadeva get the Virat Roop darshan?
It's not mentioned, bro.
Okay. Right.
Except
But
for,
Hanuman,
we know who else who else had seen in
Duryodhana.
Duryodhana had
Hanuman,
Duryodhana.
Duryodhana could see. Oh, okay.
not in the war, before the war.
But that is
Yeah.
partial, right? Prabhu,
And
that's
Lord
it.
went to on a peace mission to.
Right.
But Duryodhana's what he saw was not complete. It was just partial.
Yeah, it's partial, but that is good enough for him to learn the lesson. He didn't learn. He thought,
Yeah.
oh, Krishna is doing some magic here. He's a Mayavi. He thought,
Yeah.
Right.
non-devotees will never come to the right conclusion. Whatever they say, doesn't matter.
Right. Hanumanji could see the Virat Roop, right?
Hanumanji, I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I mean, he's only worshipper of Lord Ram. Naino Rajna Praja Bhartur
Naino.
Dharma Yudhe Vadhodvisham Itime Natu Bodhaya Kalpate Shashanam Vacha. Please read.
There is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. But this injunction is not applicable to me.
You see, he's just blaming everything on himself. No sin for a king who kills for the right cause. So it means that he is thinking his cause was wrong. Who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. But this injunction is not applicable to me. Yeah, please continue.
Maharaj Yudhishthira thought that although he was not actually involved in the administration of the kingdom, which was being carried on well by Duryodhana, without harm to the citizens, he caused the killing of so many living beings only for his personal gain of the kingdom from the hands of Duryodhana.
Continue.
The killing was not committed not in the course of administration, but for the sake of self-aggrandizement. And as such, he thought himself responsible for all the sins.
So he was just seeing, by the condition Lord put in, he was seeing everything like this. So he says Duryodhana was ruling the kingdom nicely, and now I tried to took over and caused the so much damage. So many people died. Srinam Madhat Bandhuna Oho Yosa Ihyotita Karma Bhir Grihamedhi Kalpo Yapohitum.
I have killed many friends of women
and I have thus caused enmity to such an extent that it is not possible to undo it by material welfare work.
Now he's reasoning why it cannot be even remediated. All the killing that happened, how it cannot be remediated by performance of sacrifices or anything. Continue.
Brahmadis are those whose only business is to perform welfare work for the sake of material prosperity. Such material prosperity is sometimes hampered by sinful activities, for the materialist is sure to commit sin, even unintentionally, in the course of discharging material duties. To get relief from such sinful reactions, the Vedas prescribe several kinds of sacrifices. It is said in the Vedas that by performing the Astameda Yajna, or sacrifice, one can get relief from even Brahmahatya, killing of a Brahman. Yudhishthira Maharaj performed this Astameda Yajna, but he thinks that even by performing such yajna, it is not possible to get relief from the grave sins committed. In war, either the husband or the brother or even the father or son go to fight, and when they are killed, a fresh enmity is created, and thus a chain of actions and reactions increases, which is not possible to be counteracted even by thousands of Astameda yajnas.
So he's basically considering the karmic reactions of all the people that were killed. But he was fighting for protecting dharma. That is his duty. He's not going to be responsible for, or he's not going to get any of these sins. But he was thinking like that. Yeah, this is the actual reason for it. Yeah, go ahead. So the battle of Kurukshetra was actually fought by the will of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. As it is evident from his version, and only by his will was Yudhishthira placed on the throne of Hastinapura. Therefore, factually no sin whatsoever touched the Pandavas, who were only the order carriers of the Lord. For others who declare war out of personal interest, the whole responsibility lies on them. So, if you look at current world war, the war that is going on in Ukraine, that is going to be probably, the person who is declaring the war will have the responsibility, and he will get the sin of killing so many people. All the curses from the wives and children of those families who are losing their family members, that all will going to affect them. But for the case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, the whole thing was orchestrated by the desire of the Supreme Lord. So
then the question comes, Prabhu, then why is Yudhishthira Maharaj lamenting? Because this was done at the will of the Lord, and the
yes,
Lord gave instructions to Arjuna to fight this war and to attain victory.
exactly. It was, Lord has a higher cause for this. Like we already discussed this. There is a higher reason why Lord is imploring from his heart as Paramatma. I think you missed the initial discussion we had. Lord was inspiring from within Yudhishthira Maharaj to actually speak like this, so that he will not be consoled by any of them, or any of their instructions, including Lord Kṛṣṇa and Vyasadeva. They all try to console, still he is not consoled. Then Lord would encourage Yudhishthira Maharaj to visit Bhīṣmadeva. So Lord want to use this opportunity to glorify the greatness of his devotee Bhīṣmadeva.
Okay.
That's the reason all this is happening. Yeah, all this thinking. Prabhupada took time to explain this because what it means to war, to perform a war, and what are the implications. But this is all actually not applicable in the case of because he's son of Dharma. How can there be any prarabdha karma for him? There is no prarabdha karma. All the difficulties that Pandavas go through, it is a joke that it all happened. It all happened in their life. It all happened because of the will of the Lord. Lord want to show the greatness of his devotees. That is the reason. It's not because of prarabdha karma that Dharmaraja had to go through all this, going to forest and so many attempts of killing, all the miseries that they go through. It's not for any reason, but because Lord can use the devotees as the instruments, right? And devotees are also malleable to the desire of the Lord, like I mentioned before. Lord, devotees want to be engaged in that way in the service of the Lord. Lord would use them in that way. Because of that relation between the Lord and the devotees, such incidents happen even in the life of devotees.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. One question. Then was Pranam Jai Shri. Prabhuji, so this is called Yoga Maya, right?
Yes, yeah. This is not Mahamaya. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, the orchestration is all Yoga Maya.
Correct. That's a good point. Yeah. So this is all orchestrated by Yogamaya because he's not going under material delusion here. It says it's an arrangement by the Lord. And any arrangement by the Lord is Yogamaya only because there is no purview of Mahamaya in relation to Lord. Yata pankena pankambha
Yata pankena pankambha
surayava surakritam
surayava surakritam
bhutahatyam tataivaikam
bhutahatyam tataivaikam
nayagnair matsum arhati.
As it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud or purify a wine-stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals.
So he was considering, whether it can. So my actions cannot be counteracted by performing yajnas because yajnas involve Gomeda yajna, Ashwamedha yajna. They involve killing of animals. Of course, the idea is to revive the life of the animals. However, he's considering everything in a negative mood right now. So he's just saying this way. Yeah, continue, Prabhu.
Ashwamedha yajna or Gomedha yajnas, sacrifices in which a horse or bull is sacrificed, were not, of course, for the purpose of killing the animals. Lord Chaitanya said that such animals sacrificed on the altar of yajna were rejuvenated and a new life was given to them. It was just to prove the efficacy of the hymns of the Vedas. By recitation of the hymns of the Vedas in the proper way, certainly the performer gets relief by the reactions of the sins. But in case of such sacrifices improperly done under inexpert management, surely one has to become responsible for animal sacrifice.
So in the previous ages, the Brahmanas are so powerful. Of course, Vedic hymns are there, and when the pure Brahmanas would chant these hymns, they can revive the animals as part of the sacrifice to show the efficacy of the mantras and the ability of the chanting. That shows the efficacy of the Brahmana. It shows the efficacy of the yajna. But right now that's not possible. So in Kali Yuga, this is one thing. Gavalamba. It's Gavalanga means killing of the animals. Ashwamedham, Gavalambam. So these were prohibited in Kali Yuga. The reason is the Brahmanas were not capable of reviving the animals as part of the sacrifice. They are not such powerful people who can revive the animals. And so what is recommended in this case then?
In this case, Sankirtan Yajna.
Yeah, only Sankirtan Yajna is the effective method. Any other Yajna is ineffective. Yeah. Continue.
Maharaj Yudhishthira therefore gives a hint to performing sacrifices in the age of Kali. In Kali Yuga, the only sacrifice recommended is the performance of Harinam Yajna, inaugurated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But one should not indulge in animal killing and counteract it by performing Harinama Yajna.
So we completed the chapter.
Prabhuji, this looks very similar to first chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah. So that's what I was telling. Lord uses his devotees in the way he wants. Devotees are malleable to fulfill the desire and plans of the Lord. So Lord is in. So in the case of Arjuna, Arjuna was bewildered from within, and he was inspired to speak in a confused way, and Lord himself would instruct in that case. So in this case, Bhīṣmadeva was put in such state of confusion. Yudhishthira Maharaj, the son of Dharmaraj. So he was put in such confusion so that Lord can glorify his devotee Bhīṣmadeva. So now Lord would inspire everybody to go to Bhīṣmadeva. Let's go to Bhīṣma and hear from him. So that's the 9th chapter. The passing away of Bhīṣmadeva in the presence of Lord Kṛṣṇa. So this is the desire of Bhīṣmadeva. See how Lord arranges multiple things at the same time. So he wanted to give the audience to Bhīṣmadeva before his passing away. And Bhīṣmadeva is, he has this unique ability to leave the body at his will, at the appropriate time. He can choose the time when he can leave the body. So he was still in the battlefield on the bed of arrows after the war was over. And it's also a great time for everybody to bid farewell to Bhīṣmadeva and to give darshan to Bhīṣmadeva and to also glorify Bhīṣmadeva by to showcase the greatness of his devotee Bhīṣmadeva. Lord wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj to directly hear from Bhīṣmadeva. The other reason is it's also an opportunity for Bhīṣmadeva to see his grandson finally become the rulers, the Dharma Yuktas, the people followers of Dharma. The Pandavas were finally enthroned. It's a great occasion of joy for Bhīṣmadeva. So when all these Pandavas in their royal dress come there, that is a cause of great happiness to Bhīṣmadeva's heart before he leaves his body. So it's so after seeing all of this, Bhīṣmadeva witnessing the Supreme Lord in his faith, he lives very peacefully and happily. So that's the whole story right now we are going to go through. So we'll quickly go through this process here, and actual teachings will focus next week. It's just a quick context setting verses here. Sutta uvacha iti bhita prajadroha sarvadharma vivitsaya tato vinashanam praga yatra deva vratopatat. Please read.
Suta Goswami said, being afraid for having killed so many subjects on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira went to the scene of the massacre. There Bhīṣmadeva was lying on a bed of arrows, about to pass away.
Everybody went there. Continue.
Bhīṣmadeva was endowed with the power of leaving his material body at will, and his lying down on the bed of arrows was his own choice. This passing away of the great warrior attracted the attention of all the contemporary elites, and all of them assembled there to show their feelings of love, respect, and affection for the great soul.
So we hear that not only the Pandavas and their family members, even great sages all over the world and great kings, all of them assembled to bid farewell to Bhīṣmadeva and show respect and love for him, the great soul. Tadate bharata sarve
Tada te
Sada svai swarna bhushitai
tada svai
agachan rate vipra yasadhaum yadyastata. All the brothers went together.
At that time, all his brothers followed him on beautiful chariots drawn by first-class horses decorated with gold ornaments. With them were Vyasa and rishis like Dhaumya, the learned priest of the Pandavas, and others.
So all the great rishis, Vyasa also are there in this. They all want to see Bhīṣmadeva. Bhagavan api viprarse Rathena sa Dhananjaya Tatair Vyarochata Nripa Kuvera iva guhyakai.
O sage amongst the Brahmanas, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, also followed, seated on a chariot with Arjuna. Thus King Yudhishthira appeared very aristocratic, like Kuvera surrounded by his companions, the Guhyakas.
The chief king, Yudhishthira Maharaj, was appearing like Kuvera, very rich. Drishtva nipatitam bhumao Vivaschutam ivamaram Pranemo Pandava Bhishmam Anuga Sahachakrina. Please read.
Seeing him, Bhishma, lying on the ground like a demigod fallen from the sky, the Pandava king Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Kṛṣṇa, bowed down before him.
So,
Lord,
yeah, 1 second. So, like a demigod falling from the sky. Bhishma was, he's actually, of that category. He's Vasuki. So he appeared like, very powerfully, even though he's on the bed of arrows, he looked very powerful. The Pandavas, King Yudhishthira, along with his younger brothers and Lord Kṛṣṇa, everybody, Lord Kṛṣṇa included, everybody bowed before him. Please read, Mataji.
Lord Kṛṣṇa was also a younger cousin of Maharaja Yudhishthira, as well as the intimate friend of Arjuna. But all the family members of the Pandavas knew Lord Kṛṣṇa as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord, although conscious of his supreme position, always behaved in a humanly custom, and so he also bowed down before the dying Bhīṣmadeva as if he were one of the younger brothers of King Yudhishthira.
So Lord always, whenever he is with the Pandavas, even when he was received by Yudhishthira Maharaj, anytime he comes to the kingdom, he bows down to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and Arjuna bows down to Kṛṣṇa. So he always behaved like one among them. He never showed his superiority. That is a way of Vedic customs. That is how they related to each other. Even though everybody knows that Lord is the Supreme Lord, but still they are following the customs accordingly. Tatra Brahma Shaya Sarve Deva Shayascha Sattama Rajarshayascha Tatrasan Drashtum Bharata Pungavam.
Drashtum
Bharata
Bharata
Pungava.
Pungava.
Just to see the chief of the descendants of King Bharata, Bhīṣma, all the great souls in the universe, namely the Rishis amongst the demigods, Brahmanas and kings, all situated in the quality of goodness, were assembled there.
Everybody is there. Continue with it.
The Rishis are those who have attained perfection by spiritual achievements. Such spiritual achievements can be earned by all, whether one is a king or a mendicant. Bhīṣmadeva himself was also one of the Brahmarshis and the chief of the descendants of King Bharata.
So now next couple of verses describes who all attended there, besides these demigods and kings. Some of the great sages were mentioned here. Great sages in the entire universe. They all attend here. Prabhupada gives a great purport of each personality, explaining who they are, what they are, what are some of the great characteristics of them. We'll not go in depth, but we'll just go through this. Parvato narado dhamyo Bhagavan Bhadarayanaha
Bhagavan Badarayana.
Bhradasvo Bharadvajaha
Bharadasvo Bharadvaja.
Shashishyo Renuka Sutta
Shashishyo Renuka Sutta.
Vasishta Indra Pramanadas
Vasishta Indra Brahmadas.
Trito Samadosita
Trito Samadosita.
Kakshivan Gautamo Trischa
Kakshivan Gautamo Trischa.
Kaushikota Sudarshana.
Kaushikota Sudarshana.
All the sages like Parvata Muni, Narada, Dhaumya, Vyasa, the incarnation of God, Bruhadashva, Bharadvaja, and Parashurama and disciples, Vasishta, Indrapramada, Trita, Kṛṣṇa, Asita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, and Sudarshana were present.
You know, the greatest sages in the world at the time. Prabhupada gives a nice explanation of it. You can read this. Anye cha manayo brahman.
Anye cha manayo brahman.
Brahman.
Brahmarata mala.
Brahmarata mala.
Shair upeta ajagmu.
Shishirupeta ajagmu.
Kashyapangira shadaya.
Kashyapangira sadaya.
Yeah.
And many others like Sukadeva Goswami and other purified souls, Kashyapa and Angirasha and others, all accompanied by their respective disciples, arrived there.
Sukadeva Goswami is also there. Yeah. Anybody has any bells ringing? How come Sukadeva Goswami is here? This is happening before even Pandavas were ruling the kingdom. It's about to start. And they ruled for 36 years. After that, Parīkṣit Maharaj ruled for some more years. And Parīkṣit Maharaj is about to be born now. So Parīkṣit Maharaj is about 36 years. And we hear that in Vyasadeva, in the story of Bhagavad Purana, we hear that Vyasadeva was born as a 16-year-old boy. So the understanding is that Sukadeva Goswami, he's always young. He's like 16-year-old boy all the time. That's the understanding. He might be born before, but he is always 16-year-old. So when he was teaching Maharaj, Parīkṣit Maharaj, Parīkṣit must be at least 36 years by our calculation. But it is mentioned that Sukadeva Goswami was only 16 years. So how do you reconcile? Acharya say Sukadeva Goswami is his body is spiritual and he's always Navayavana. He's like 16-year-old boy. I mean, every time we discuss these words, that question comes up. That's the reason I'm telling you beforehand. Again, all the sages were explained here. Tan sametan mahabhagan upalabhya vasuttama pujayam asa dharmajno deshakala vibhagave.
Bhīṣmadeva, who was among the best, who was the best among the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis who were assembled there, for he knew perfectly all the religious principles according to time and place.
See, Bhīṣmadeva was in a very tough state, right? He's on a bed of arrows. But one may be in such a state of a situation, one may be overwhelmed with his own misery, right? There is a lot of pain because of the arrows in the body. But he received each sage very respectfully with sweet words. What is mentioned here? Deshakala vibhagavi, meaning according to time, place, circumstance. Right? Great people like Bhīṣmadeva, they know according to the time, place, circumstance how to receive. In general, if you receive anybody to your home, you would offer sweet words and also some water so that they'll feel relieved of any stress of coming to your home or whatever. So there is an exchange that happens so that an etiquette is followed so that the guest would be received happily. So Bhīṣmadeva was the recipient here, and all these sages came, and he respectfully received everyone, even though he is in such a state. So he was speaking sweet words about each of them, because that is the only thing he can do in his current state. And he would receive all of them and express his gratitude to each of them for having come and seeing him in this current state. He is about to leave his body. So being a Mahabhagavat, he knows how to receive. He is not even mindful about his own misery. He's just focused on. So that is how a pure devotee always conducts himself. He is never mindful of his own bodily situation. Right? Like we saw here in the previous verses, Yudhishthira Maharaj is saying, why did I even participate in this? This whole body is meant for others. Right? They never consider that this body is for their happiness. They never consider it as their property. It's Lord's property meant for everybody's happiness. So even here in this case also we see Bhīṣmadeva is completely inconsiderate of his own physical condition, and he was focused on receiving the devotees in a very respectable way, according to time, place, circumstance. Continue, Prabhu.
Expert religionists know perfectly well how to adjust religious principles in terms of time and place. All the great acharyas or religious preachers or reformers of the world executed their mission by adjustment of religious principles in terms of time and place. There are different climates and situations in different parts of the world. And if one has to discharge his duties to preach the message of the Lord, he must be an expert in adjusting things in terms of time and place. Bhīṣmadeva was one of the 12 great authorities in preaching this cult of devotional service, and therefore he could receive and welcome all the powerful sages assembled there at his deathbed from all parts of the universe.
So an expert acharya knows how to adjust religious principles in terms of time and place. We see in the life of Srila Prabhupada, when he came to the West, he adjusted a lot of principles according to the time, place, circumstance. Otherwise, it's not possible to preach. If you hang on to your own principles as you followed in India, it won't work. So Prabhupada could connect to the audience here and inspire them to follow according to the conditions that are available here. For example, until Prabhupada's time, right, every disciple in Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya would chant at least 64 rounds every single day. Up until even Srila Prabhupada time, right? His spiritual master would ask him to chant 64 rounds. That is the minimum. Why? The reason is simple. Lord Chaitanya said, I will visit anybody who is a Lakadikari. Means one who chants. Lakadikari means one who chants 1 lakh holy names every day. 1 lakh holy names come to about 60 plus rounds. But Srila Prabhupada, according to the time, place, circumstances, he adjusted based on the condition of the Western audience. It doesn't mean that we only chant 16 hours. We should chant as much as we can. But that is the minimum condition. Right? So like that, acharyas would adjust the situation, the rules and regulations according to the time, place, circumstance, so that the audience can accept the principles without, without deviating from the original goal of the principles. Krishnam cha tat prabhavajna
Krishnam cha tat prabhava
Srinam Jagadishwaram
Asrinam Jagadishwaram
Hridistam Pujayam Asa
Hridistam Pujayamasa
Maya Yopata Vigraham
Maya Yopata Vigraham.
Lord Sri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhīṣmadeva, and since Bhīṣmadeva knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly.
Bhīṣmadeva was a pure devotee Mahajan. He knows perfectly well who Krishna is, so he glorified Lord. Panduputran Upasinam
Panduputran Upasinam
Ashraya Prema Sangatam
Prashraya Prema Sangatam
Ya Chastanuraga Shrayer
Abhyachastanuragashray
Andhibhutena Chakshusha
Andhibhutena Chakshusha.
The son of Maharaja Pandu was sitting silently nearby, overtaking with affection for their dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhīṣmadeva congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection.
Bhīṣmadeva was just by seeing the sight of the Pandavas, because he knows very well how much tribulations they went through. The Pandavas were lost their father at a very, very young age, raised by a widow mother, who were constantly and consistently facing the challenges of death. So, looking at these Pandavas, who were great devotees of Krishna, he himself was a great devotee of Krishna, finally enthroned in the state, he was completely joyful just by seeing them. Tears of ecstasy were there in his eyes. Imagine how much overwhelmed he was. Even Pandavas were pure devotees and they had so affectionate to Bhīṣmadeva. They also silently were sitting there. It's a great sight. Please read. It's a very good part.
When Maharaja Pandu died, his sons were all small children, and naturally they were brought up under the affection by elderly members of the royal family, especially by Bhīṣmadeva. Later on, when Pandavas were grown up, they were cheated by cunning Duryodhana and company. And Bhīṣmadeva, although he knew that Pandavas were innocent and were unnecessarily put into trouble, could not take the side of the Pandavas for political reasons. At the last stage of his life, when Bhīṣmadeva saw his most exalted grandsons, headed by Maharaja Yudhishthira, sitting very gently at his side, the great warrior grandfather could not check his loving tears, which were automatically flowing from his eyes. He remembered the great tribulations suffered by his most pious grandsons. Certainly, he was the most satisfied man because of Yudhishthira's being enthroned in the place of Duryodhana, and thus he began to congratulate them.
He was a very satisfied man. It's a very powerful statement here. He was very satisfied man because Yudhishthira was being enthroned in place of Duryodhana and thus began to congratulate them. So next verses are, he will begin the teachings. It's a lot of important instructions. So we'll discuss next week. Any questions on what we discussed? They're very powerful lessons today. If nothing, we can reconvene next week. Thank you all very much for joining.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.